Welcome to the podcast. I'm Chris Baker from Foodpocalypse Now, here to hang and bang with you for the next, who knows how long this is going to last. I have no plans on how long these things are going to be. It's just whatever flows out of my mouth, what a stream of consciousness diatribe that I've got ready to roll. It's just going to pour out like children to the playground, as Blue October would say. And I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast and see what this is all about. Of course, we've got the podcast now. We're starting this. Don't know if this is going to be just the Foodpocalypse Now podcast, or in the future we may kind of, dive off into different directions and maybe do a different podcast for different subjects. Who knows? But for right now, we've got the Foodpocalypse Now podcast, and I want to thank you for joining me. And I guess that's what this first episode is going to be about, kind of what Foodpocalypse Now is all about, kind of my background in food and podcasting and doing the website and that sort of thing. But really, before we start, I got to talk about this. I would like to, check out recipes online. Stuff will come up on Facebook, various sites that I follow on Facebook, and I saw one the other night from Tasty. They put out a recipe. It's a one-pot cilantro lime chicken and rice recipe that I had to try. And for the most part, I don't get to cook as often as I'd like to. We've been this past couple years, of course, with COVID, and my wife and I we got married late last year. We did a remodel and an addition on our place, and that has just taken up all of our time. And I haven't really had a chance to cook because I've been focusing on work and trying to get this website going and all the other variations of things that we're doing with foodpocalypsenow.com. So I don't get to cook as much as I used to and as much as I'd like to. But I saw this. I'm like, I'm going to cook for my wife, and I'm always dazzled by what she finds online. She's always going to Pinterest, finding these just out-of-sight recipes and cooking them to perfection and, life-changing stuff. And I want to do that for her. So I'm like, I see this recipe, I like what I see, and I know what I want to do to kind of make it my own. But it's a really great recipe. If you get a chance, check it out at Tasty's website. It's a one-pot cilantro lime chicken and rice, and it's got, of course, all the regular stuff, onions. It calls for chopped poblano peppers, garlic, chicken broth, canned black beans, diced tomatoes, rice, and of course, all the salt and pepper, cilantro, that sort of stuff, limes as well. But you know what? I like to go overboard when I can, so make things, amp things up as far as flavor goes. So when I cook this, you cook off the chicken first. And I decided to throw in not just salt and pepper, but I decided to throw in some ground coriander. I thought that would go well with the cilantro, of course. And then when I put everything else goes in the pot after that. You take the chicken out, everything else goes in the pot, everybody in for a swim. And I decided to put in a teaspoon of chili powder, smoked paprika, and a teaspoon of cumin. Because it kind of had a flair to this, a Spanish flair to this, so I thought those would complement what was going on with the cilantro and the lime and all of that. And I used, it calls for jasmine rice in the recipe. I didn't have any, I had basmati, so use that. I didn't have poblano peppers, but I did have some diced green chilies, so I used that. And wow, did it turn out good. I think it would have been fine just the way the recipe is. All the flavors just really go together and would have been a great recipe, but I can't help but tinker. And that's one of the beauties about cooking, is being able to take something that maybe somebody else came up with and tweak it and add different things and make it your own, and kind of curtail what you're making to your personal taste. I love the taste of cumin and chili powder and paprika and that sort of thing. So it really lent itself to this dish, and I was able to add that and kind of take something that was already going to be good and just make it something that that really appealed even more to my taste. And I don't know, my wife liked it. Her mother liked it. My mother-in-law, she seemed to like it. So I think it was a win. But check that out. You can go to our Facebook page. I got a link to the recipe. I believe also a link to the recipe on our Instagram page. But just one of the things that I want to do with this podcast is be able to take, maybe not, not gonna go over recipes every week, and I didn't go over that in great detail, but we're gonna talk about some of the food I'm cooking, some of the food I'm eating, and we're also gonna talk about other things because I guess I like to consider myself a foodie. I don't know. I really kind of hate that term. It sounds a little pretentious. Foodies, if you're listening, and you can't deny, calling yourself a foodie sounds a little pretentious, but we love food, and we love different types of food. We love trying new things. So if foodie is the term that is best used to describe that, then I guess I'm a foodie. But I haven't always been a foodie. When I was growing up, I did not like to eat anything. I was probably one of the pickiest kids. And parents, if you have picky kids, as far as food goes, it can get better. I'm not saying it will get better, because I know some adults are just as picky now as they were when they were kids. But I was one that was transformed. When I was a kid growing up, you could count the things I would eat on one hand. I would eat Chef Boyardee ravioli. I would eat pancakes. I would eat, oddly enough, my mom made a chicken and gravy over biscuits dinner that I always liked. And maybe we'll talk about it in another podcast, but my mom had a thing with gravy that I just didn't care for as a kid when it came, especially like hamburger gravy. Again, a topic for another podcast, but I liked her chicken and gravy and biscuits. And that was pretty much it. I mean, I'd eat some other stuff. If she made spaghetti, I would eat the noodles with butter over them. That kind of picky. If we had pizza, I would scrape everything off and pretty much just eat the crust. But I didn't always like food growing up. I mean, I liked it, but I was always afraid to try new things. And I don't know what happened. Probably around my teenage years, I started eating pizza, started eating spaghetti, that sort of thing. And then as an adult, something just like a switch was flipped. And all of a sudden, I decided, I'm going to start trying these different things. And that just advanced and progressed over the years until now I will try and have tried just about everything, every type of food. I went from a guy who wouldn't even contemplate the thought of eating a mushroom. Now, mushrooms aren't my favorite thing, but I like to eat mushrooms from time to time. If something's got mushrooms in it or something has mushrooms on it, I'm not afraid to give it a shot and enjoy it. And it's one of those things where you realize mushrooms pretty much just like a sponge. It's going to soak up whatever flavor it's cooked in. So if it's cooked in something well, you're going to get that flavor in the mushroom. And something I learned and something I've grown to appreciate is food. And that really, it's been like that for a while. I started cooking. I like to cook for myself. I was single for a very long time until my wife and I met. And so, I did a lot of cooking for myself and did a lot of experimenting, trying different recipes. And that really kind of grew my love for food until now. I'm at a point where, I like to go to different restaurants. I like to try different things. And when you go to a restaurant and you find something like a dish there, I think probably one of the things that made me start wanting to write a food blog, in so much as, I'm not... Foodpocalypse Now's food blog isn't like some of the other food blogs out there where, you go over a recipe and that sort of thing. I like to go to different restaurants and talk about my experience. So if you don't want to call that a food blog, you want to call it a restaurant review blog or a travel blog or whatever, I don't care. Call it what you want, but it is what it is. And one of the places that I first went to that really got me wanting to tell everybody about my food experience was a burger place called Burgers down in Harmony, Zelienople area, just north of Pittsburgh. They do have one in Pittsburgh, and I loved it. It was life-changing. My wife had been there one time prior, and after we started dating, she took me there for my birthday, and I had a burger called the Mexican War. All the burgers are named after areas of of Pittsburgh, Fox Chapel, that sort of thing, Shady Side. And Mexican War is an area down in Pittsburgh, and they named the burger after that, and it is just phenomenal. It's got green chilies, it's got heat, it's so full of flavor. All of their burgers so full of flavor. And one of the things about burgers that I love the most is everything is locally sourced. The meat, all the ingredients, and that sort of thing. And that's something I can get behind. A local business doing things right, creating good food that is, helping support the local economy, and more importantly, like I said, good food. I mean, their burgers are outstanding. You can taste the freshness in them. So that was one of the things I loved about it. And it's like, I can't wait to tell other people about this place and this burger that I had. And I said, I wish I had a platform I could sit there and tell my friends and family. But, they listen to me about as well as anybody else. Hopefully you listen better than my friends and family do. But at any rate, I wanted to get the word out there. And I was like, how can I do that? Well, I can't remember when this started. Maybe 2018, I think, is when we started Foodpocalypse Now as a blog. And I'm like, I was probably a little late in the game. I mean, blogging had been around forever by then, but I'm like, well, let's do that. Let's start a blog. And that way, maybe if I can tell one other person about this place and they go there and they have the same life-changing experience I had with a burger at Burgers, then maybe it was all worth it. All the time and effort I put into writing about them and describing my experience there, that would be worth it. And I can't say that the food blog exploded from there. Still fighting and scratching to get the word out there, get people reading about the places that I go to and reading about the food that I'm eating. But you know what? This is a labor of love. And I don't do it for any sort of paycheck. I don't do it for any, glitz and glam and fame and ticker tape parades and people praising my name at how well I write or anything like that. It's a labor of love. I do it because I love the food. I do it because I have an opportunity to tell people about places that maybe they hadn't heard of before. And like I said, if I can get one person to go to wherever I'm writing about and try something that maybe they've never tried before, or at the very least try something maybe they're familiar with, but this place does it so much better than any other place, and they decide that I love this place, I want to eat here again, then maybe I've done my job in getting the word out there, and hopefully I do that. I don't know. I'd like to think I'm not a Pulitzer Prize winning writer or anything like that. My background is in radio, so but I hope I write well enough and I describe things well enough that at the very least, you're thinking to yourself, hey, you know what? He may be onto something. I think I might like to go and try whatever he has had at wherever he's had it. And it's a lot of places around where I live. My I guess hometown. You live in a small town, and you really can't say one town is your hometown, because I live in Conneaut Lake, Pennsylvania, but Meadville, Sagertown, Cambridge Springs, Edinburgh, Franklin, Oil City, Newcastle, it's all within, an hour's driving distance. Erie, Pennsylvania is, 45 minutes away. Probably more like 30 minutes if I'm driving the way I usually drive. But at any rate, a lot of food around here and a lot of places, and everything's close by. So I guess northwestern Pennsylvania could be considered my hometown, because my home region. And there's a lot of great food around here. The food scene is not growing by leaps and bounds, but it is growing, and it is getting more interesting, more diverse. And then, of course, you got places like Pittsburgh, hour and a half away. Cleveland's a couple hours away. Buffalo's a couple hours away. I go down to Charlotte all the time, so I'm driving through the Virginias. And anywhere I go, I'm trying to find something new. And with this blog, I tell you about it. I'm not jet setting all over the country. I don't have that kind of money. I wish I did. Maybe one day. But wherever I go, I'm looking for something to write about, looking for something to eat, and looking to tell anybody who will read that, hey, this is there. Got to go check it out if you haven't already, and you got to try this dish or what have you. So, like I said, that's what I'm trying to do with the Foodpocalypse Now blog, the Foodpocalypse Now website, and of course now we're kind of delving into some other media. We've got the YouTube channel where I'm doing some videos. Got this podcast now. I guess I'm now officially a podcaster. So we're trying to get the word out about different types of food. That's the thing about Foodpocalypse Now is I came up with the name. I wanted to do something, just kind of a play on words. And of course, I was born in the mid 70s, grew up in the 80s. Of course, you can't have lived through that time and not heard of the show or the movie Apocalypse Now. And the term Foodpocalypse came to mind. Nothing I coined. I probably heard it somewhere along the way at some point, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put those two words together and come up with. I've probably heard snowpocalypse enough here in northwestern Pennsylvania that it just seemed natural to call something foodpocalypse. Everything is apocalypse now, but at any rate, and then I thought of the movie Foodpocalypse Now, and so that's kind of how that came about. And then you look into the word apocalypse, which means a revelation. And, the book of Revelations is sometimes called the apocalypse. And I thought, that's kind of what I want to do. I just want to reveal to people all these things about food. And that's kind of where our tagline came from, a revelation of all things food. That's kind of where that started. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do is just, open people's eyes, reveal to people things that they may not have thought to try. They didn't know was there to try. Maybe they were like me when I was a kid and were afraid to try something. But you try to make things accessible and describe things in a way that will make people not so scared of whatever it is that's keeping them from trying something new. I guess in some form or fashion, that is what I'm trying to do as well. And of course, that's kind of how the website came about. It started out as just a blog. Decided to do a website. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right and do a website. And then we've kind of, like I said, not a ton of views on the website. But I'm not putting any money into advertising this. Just kind of a word of mouth thing. And hopefully things will grow. I'm always looking. I'm not doing this just for my health. I want to get the word out there to people who are willing to read it, listen to it, watch it, whatever I'm doing. So that's kind of where we're at, trying to just build a base of people that just want to see what's going on here, and hopefully with this podcast we can do that as well on an audio platform. And that's kind of where my background is in the audio formats. I've got a career in radio. I've been in radio for pushing 30 years. It was 1993 when I first started in radio. I think probably technically the first time I was on the air was in 1992, but 1993 was when I really started. So we're coming up on 30 years, but been in radio for all this time, been on the air, done every type of show possible. I've been on the overnights. I've been on afternoon drive. I've been on morning drive. I've done the middays, weekend shifts. I worked holidays. I've done it all. I've been in everywhere. And of course, I love radio. Radio is in my blood. I love to perform. That's, if anything, I hope you're just entertained by me. Even if you don't care about what I'm talking about, maybe you don't care about what I'm right about, if I can entertain you for just a few minutes, then I've also done my job as well, because at the heart, that's all what I've always been as an entertainer. As a kid growing up, I was always, putting on a show for my family. I remember my dad giving me a tape recorder and singing songs and doing little things into that, and just putting on a show. And then I'd go play it for my family and try to get them to laugh. But at any rate, I never outgrew that. And that really translated into a radio career. Now, I'm not on the air right now, of the past couple years. Some jobs have changed at the radio station I work at. So I'm more of a behind the scenes guy, writing commercials, producing commercials, and that sort of thing. And that also kind of lent itself to me writing. I grew as a writer, writing commercials, and that's probably one of the things that gave me the chutzpah to go and start a blog, is that I had some writing credibility under my belt, and that really helped in that regard, is putting that skill set that I learned writing commercials and describing things in a way that hopefully would get people to go somewhere or buy something, and translate that into a blog. And that's really all a blog is, especially when you're talking about food and you're talking about restaurants. You want people to go to the restaurant. You want people to go and try the food. And, that's advertising in its purest form, I suppose. But, that's my background, radio and writing advertising. And I hopefully it translates well into writing blogs, into doing a podcast, into doing the video series. Although I don't, I hate looking at myself on those YouTube videos. I've got a bit of a weight problem, if you may not have noticed. I'm working on it. Trying to work on it. So that may be some of the things we talk about on the blog. That's what I want this blog to be about. Yeah, we're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about restaurants. Hopefully we'll get some restaurateurs on to kind of pick their brain and see what they're like. But I want this podcast to be not only about food, not only about restaurants, not only about foodies, but the things foodies like. I consider myself a foodie, so to speak, and I like other things. I don't just sit around and think about food all day. I know you look at my waistline, you're thinking, that's BS right there. But no, I do have other interests. I love music. I love movies. I love books. I love hockey. I'm a huge sports fan. Of course, black and gold, Pittsburgh sports all the way. Penguins, Steelers, Pirates, even though the Pirates have been embarrassing lately. I like food. But I also like a lot of other things. And we're going to talk about those other things. And hopefully, hopefully that doesn't turn people away. Hopefully you like to hear me get on here and gripe about, how the Pittsburgh Penguins are doing, or the latest book I've read, or the TV show that I'm watching. Just wrapped up WandaVision last week. What an amazing show. And we're going to talk about stuff like that because I think foodies are interested in more than just food. I don't sit around and just look at pictures of food all day on my computer. Not all day. I do it some, but not all day. No, we all have other interests, and hopefully I can let some of those interests shine through on this, as well as talking about food, as well as talking about the latest recipe I've tried and that sort of thing. But hopefully it's something that interests you, and like I said before, at the very least, hopefully I entertain you in whatever I'm talking about, and hopefully that I engage you in some way and make you think about things differently. That's the beauty of this medium, is that, you can do something different every day. Like I said, we may decide to take this and do the Foodpocalypse Now podcast and do it just straight talking about food, whatever, and then maybe do some different podcasts where I talk about sports, where I talk about books, or who knows? The possibilities are endless, and I'm just excited for the opportunity to do this, and I'm even more excited for the opportunity that you might be able to listen to it, and that you are listening to it right now, and we'll hopefully come back and listen to more. I know this was kind of hopefully not boring. Hopefully I didn't bore you to tears. Hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. At the very least, you can put this on at night and, just hit play on the podcast wherever you're listening to it, and I can lull you into a silent slumber of sleep, and you'll wake up refreshed and ready for a brand new day. Probably not, because then I'm going to start getting really loud again. I have a tendency to get loud and fired up, but at any rate, I just wanted to do this initial podcast, kind of give you a sense of what Foodpocalypse Now's podcast is going to be about. It's going to be about food, but it's going to be about a lot of other things. Whatever I happen to be interested in at the time, or whatever's going on in society. I promise I won't bring politics into this, because I don't think politics has anything to do with food. In a world where everyone's divided, whether it's politics or what have you, I think that's the great thing about food, is that food is the one thing that, it doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter what your nationality is. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, what sex you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. Everybody likes food. Everybody has some food dish or what have you that it touches their heart. It warms their soul when they eat it. And that's what brings us together, I think. That's what can bring us together, is our not our differences, but the things that make us so much alike. And I think food is a part of that. That you and I, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter what makes us different from one another, our love for a particular food, we can come together and we can talk about that and we can discuss that, and that binds us, and not even just food, art, entertainment, things like that. That's the stuff that love of family. Those are the kind of things that bond us together, not divide us. And that's what I want this to be about. And that's the beauty I like about food and cooking and sharing that with others is it maybe it could divide us. I know some people that they're militantly, if you like this type of food, I don't know why you even live. There are people like that. But food shouldn't be about that. Food should be about sharing experiences, sharing a love of things you'd like to partake in, and that should bring us together. And that's kind of what the focus is to bring people together with this, talking about food, talking about sports. Unless you're a Flyers fan, I can't say with any certainty that we'll be brought together in anything. Maybe our love for hockey. Okay, we'll call it that. But just kidding. But at any rate, that's what I want people to understand, that no matter how much we're different, we're all like, we all love food and we all love experiencing life. And I guess maybe at the heart of it, that's what this podcast is going to be about. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Please check out our website, foodpocalypsenow.com. You can also check out our YouTube channel. We've got the Snack Attack video series, got more on the way. Working on some other video series ideas there. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, stay tuned. There's going to be more on the way. We're hopefully going to do this at least once a week, maybe a couple times a week, depending on the topics I have to talk about. So until then, have yourself a great one, and until next time, keep eating.